Good evening. Hi, my name is Sherry Greco-Rikis, and I'm here with Liz Zilas. And we welcome you to the top 10 questions young adults ask us about money. Now, Liz and I, our full-time jobs are financial advisors at Rappaport Rikis Capital Management, but we also have another very important job. We're also moms, and we're moms of young adults. And a lot of the young adults are friends of our kids, ask us questions all the time. It could be at the Cubs game, it could be on a boat. How much should I spend for rent? So we decided that we would take all these questions that people keep asking us all the time, boil it down to the top 10 questions that young adults ask us about money, and talk about it today. As they say, there's no free lunch or no free webinar. So I want to tell you just a little bit about our firm. I'm actually one of the co-founders, founded the firm in 2005. Liz joined us, about 10 years ago, 12 years ago? It seems like a long, long time ago.
About 12 years ago,
About 12 years ago, time flies. We're an independent investment advisory firm. We manage about 800 million for individuals, families, nonprofits. And our mission is to not only maximize the return for our clients on their assets, but to maximize our clients' return on life. And we do this through comprehensive planning and investing. So that's a little bit about us, but who are we really? This is what our core values, this is what we stand for as a firm. We earn trust through integrity and expertise. We succeed together. We grow and innovate. We positively impact our team, clients, and the community. We're all involved in the community. And we do have fun along the way. So right now we have 14 employees and we do have a good time. We get the job done, but these are the values of our firm. So why are we here today? We're here today because the problem is young adults are very optimistic. They want to be independent, but they're often looking for direction. And really, it's not your fault. They don't teach this in high school. They don't teach this in college. And we did a study through Schwab Young Adult Study, and this was just some of the survey answers that came up. Young adults expect to retire at age 60, maybe even earlier, some of you. 76% believe that they will have a better financial future than their parents. And 4 in 5 adults are not financially independent. So we hopefully will move the needle a little bit today, because the number one source of income is help from their parents. So that's the problem. But what is the solution? The solution, and that's why we're here tonight, is financial education. And just from the friends of my daughter, and I know, Liz, we've talked about this, my daughters and your kids, is education is something that they want. Young adults want to learn more about finances. And again, that's why we're here today. There was a survey again done in 2018. These were the 5 things that young adults wanted to know. It's funny because Liz and I independently came up with the top 10 questions, and our questions included these plus 5 more. So I'm going to turn it over to Liz so she can tell you tonight what we're going to talk about, the top 10 questions. Now, these are the questions we hear, and we know some of you may have your own questions. So there will definitely be time. So feel free to put it in the Q&A, and we will try to answer as many questions as possible. So now I'll turn it over to Liz, who will go over all the questions that we're going to talk about tonight.
Thanks, Sherry. First of all, for my kids, who I hope are on this webinar, I am wearing my financial advisor hat today, not my mom hat. So remember that. So please listen to what I'm saying. So again, here are the top 10 questions that young
Liz,
adults,
you had to go on a webinar for them to listen to what you're saying.
Exactly. So we broke it down into 4 different categories that you can see on this slide. So there's spending, credit and debt, investing, and just in case. So in the spending category, the 2 main questions are, how do I start a budget? Where do I even begin? And how much should I spend on rent, on going out, on music, on clothing? We're going to talk about that in just a moment. The next category is credit and debt. So how do you establish good credit? And under that topic is, how do you deal with student loans? We're going to cover a few different aspects of credit and debt also in a few minutes. The third category is investing. We always hear, is now a good time to invest? How much should I contribute to my 401k? Should I use a Roth 401k or a traditional 401k? How should I invest my 401k, as well as other money that I may be able to save outside of my retirement accounts? And just in case, even though that doesn't sound like it's a financial thing, it really is, and it's an umbrella over everything. How do you keep your information safe? And healthcare power of attorney. What if I need someone else to make healthcare decisions on my behalf? So without further ado, I'm actually going to turn it back to Sherry for a minute on spending, and then it'll come back to me for the next item.
Great. And I don't know if we had an end time for this, but Liz and I did a practice. I think we did it in 2 hours and 10 minutes. Oh, just kidding. You don't have to get Uber Eats. We'll probably be done in about a half hour or so, and plenty of time to answer your questions.
At most.
At most, yes. And I talk fast, so we will get through this. And so the first thing is spending. And the most important thing is to start a budget. So how do you start the budget? Well, you start by calculating your after-tax income. And this is kind of a picture here. I know when you open the envelope and you see your paycheck, most of you aren't. You're probably getting this directly deposited, but you will see your paycheck stub. So what you do is you take your pay minus your FICA Social Security taxes, and you add back your 401k, whatever you're putting in the 401k. That is your after-tax income. That is the starting point. And you never want to spend more than that after-tax income. So now that we have the after-tax income, what do? Well, the best thing you can do is track your spending. And it gets very complicated. There's wonderful programs like Quicken and Mint. You can use a spreadsheet, old-fashioned paper. But what we wanted to do is kind of give you some broad guidelines to help you with budgeting. And any way that you want to track your spending, that's up to you. But here are some broad guidelines here. So we broke it down. It's called the 50-30-20 rule. And we use this a lot when we work with clients. And a lot I use this when people, especially peers of my kids, ask, how much should I spend for rent? And that's really the first category. We call that the basics. And that's 50% of your after-tax paycheck. 50% not only goes for your rent or mortgage, but also cable, internet, groceries, if you have parking, transportation. And I always say one of the basics is flowers for mom. You can choose when you want to do that. That won't move the needle on the budget, but that's just a nice thing. So the basics, I kind of say, what does it cost to turn out the lights in the apartment? So that's the basics. So if your after tax paycheck is $3,000, then your rent and basics should be about $1,500. That's how it works.
Per month.
Then we have, excuse me? Oh,
per month.
Then we have the fun stuff. And that is entertainment, dining out, travel. If you want to look good, brunch with mom, isn't that fun? I think we all have fun with that. But that's where you kind of have your discretionary amount. That's where you can, now again, you can't do everything, but we'll talk about that in a moment, but that's the fun stuff. And then you still want to start planning for your future. The first thing you want to do is take 20% and pay down any debt that you have. Car loans, make sure you make those payments. That should be part of the 20%. Student loans, we hope, and Liz will talk about this later, you don't have a balance on your credit card, but if you do, you pay that down. Maybe set up a rainy day fund, have 3 to 6 months and save for a specific goal. Maybe it's a car, maybe it's a condo you want to move to, that's 20%. So this should all add up to 100. Liz, did you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to interject. So, this is a great template, a great roadmap, but we know that for many of you who are just starting out, like you're probably in your head doing this math and being like, well, if my take home pay is $40,000 after taxes, then 20% of that is $8,000. I mean, there's no chance that you're going to be able to be saving $8,000 right now for your future. And please don't beat yourself up about that. We recognize that. We're just trying to set it in motion, sort of the mindset of what you should be thinking about. But please, 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 we're not doing this to make you feel badly. We're doing this to sort of provide you a roadmap. So just want to make that clear.
Exactly. And we know in Chicago, if you want to live in a nice neighborhood and you want a secure building, you may end up paying 60% of your basics. So maybe your future has to go temporarily down 10%. So it all should add up. But the bottom line is you want to spend less than the money you have coming in. And that is really the most important thing. So I have a little story here. Hopefully most of you know who this guy is over here. Liz, I know, adores him. I do too. This is Bruce Springsteen. And when I was 16 years old and I got my first job, Bruce Springsteen was coming to town, but I also had my eye on some fry boots. And I didn't have enough money for both. So I thought if I talked to my good old dad about it, he'd say, "Oh, Sherry, don't worry about it. I'll pay for the boots. You go to Bruce Springsteen." But instead, he looked me in the eye and he said this bullet point number 1. You can have anything you want, not everything. So pick what's most important. I decided to pick Springsteen. I think I've been a experienced adventure type person most of my life. And it's kind of funny. Recently, I bought my daughter the fry boots that I never bought myself back then, but I could get them now. But the key to financial happiness is to live within your means. And like I said before, that means spending less than the money coming in. You do this, start your life with this, live within your means, everything else will fall into place. Less debt, less stress, trust us, live within your means. So now I'm going to turn it talking about living within your means. You do not want to get into debt here. So I'm going to turn it over to Liz to talk about credit and debt.
And amen to live within your means. You cannot stress that enough. Thanks, Sherry. So how do I establish good credit? So the first thing for those of you who are just starting out, you want to open a credit card account. While you want to shop around, as to where you're going to open that, in most cases, you can just go to the bank where you do your banking, and they have a lot of different alternatives. The truth of the matter is, in the olden days, people used to have, and there are still people who do, who had multiple credit cards. But in this day and age, with Apple Pay and all of the different cash apps, if you have one credit card and your debit card, you're really okay, because you don't want to accumulate so many different credit cards that you forget what you already said this, but a credit card is a convenience. It is not a crutch. So when you charge something on your credit card, you must have the money in the bank to pay it off. You are not going to finance this. There is such thing as good debt to have. And examples of those are if eventually you are going to buy your first car, you may need to take out a car loan. If you're going to buy your first house, you can have a mortgage. You will never, as long as I know any of you, have a debt balance on your credit cards. That is not what it's for. It gets you into a ton of trouble. So you need to start smart with good habits, which include setting up auto payments on any cards that you have, so it automatically gets paid. Now, I'm not suggesting you pay it blindly. You want to check your bank accounts. I mean, I check mine every day. That's a little bit excessive, but you need to check your bank accounts regularly to make sure that the money coming in is correct and the money going out, even more importantly, is correct. Another really important piece of your credit is knowing your credit score. You may be doing all the right things and think you have good credit, and you probably should and do. But often when you check your credit report, there will be things on there that you are not at all familiar with. So you need to get that taken care of. So on here is the website that you need to go to. We will also post it in the chat and in our follow-up email. But regularly, when I say regularly, once a year, just check your credit.
And you can do this for free. This doesn't cost anything.
Exactly. But you just, once you get yourself into a bad credit cycle, it is near impossible to get yourself out. So again, start smart with good habits. And on the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about student loans. So the student loan arena right now is a pretty fluid situation. If you keep up with the news and hear what's going on, there has been a the student loans, right now, you do not have to be paying your student loans off. That's for federal loans. There's been I can't think of the right word, but it's been suspended. Payments have been suspended right now through August, okay? But even though the federal loans have been suspended, university granted loans and private loans are still needing to be paid. But for anyone on this call who does have federal loans, we're under the assumption that you are not paying them because you don't have to, but we really recommend you still taking whatever money you would be paying towards that student loan and putting it in a segregated account, because once that starts up again, you don't want to fall behind. So that's just kind of a tidbit of a suggestion. And remember that 50-30-20 rule. We're going to come back to that, quite a few times in this conversation. Even though you're not going to be able to potentially save the full 20% or use it towards paying off, really, really, really stretch yourself as much as you can in this 20% bucket. For student loans, make sure that if you can, you refinance at a lower rate. It may not be available right now, but just keep your eye on that and making sure you knock off all your high rate loans first. And then lastly, just stay up on the news, because things are very fluid and we just don't want you to be paying if you don't need to be. And that's really it on student loans. And I think we will go to the next slide.
Great, thanks, Liz. So now we're going to talk about one of our favorite topics, that's investing. And we get this question, Liz, I don't know how many times a day, is this the right time to invest? And Liz and I have been doing this a long time, and we've been getting this question almost throughout our career. So recently, last June, I wrote a book called Maximize Your Return on Life, Invest Your Time and Money in What You Value Most. And today we are going to give 2 lucky people a copy of my book. So what I want you to think about, if you had $1 in 1970 and you invested it in the global stock market, that's US and international stocks, what would that dollar be worth today at 12/31/2021? And you can put it in the chat, your answer. And we will send 2 books to the closest guesses here. So $1, I'll give you just a moment, $1 in 1970, and what would it be worth 12/31/2021? So do we have any guesses here? I see one guess, 12:40. Just we'll give you just another minute or so. $1 in 1970, what would it be 12/31/2021?
Way too low, guys.
You guys are too low. Someone says 85 million. We wish. That would be fabulous. Well, I'll give you one more minute. You could do it in the Q&A or the chat. So
someone just is close.
Someone's very close. Okay. And I know some of you are shy over here, but the answer is $98. So think about that. Liz's comment, I'll steal your thunder. She always says, put as many zeros as you want on there. So just think, if you put 1,000 in your 401k now, it could be worth 98,000 at the end of 2021. But if you look here, it was not a smooth ride. There were a lot of dips along the way. And I want to kind of highlight the most recent one, COVID, which was so devastating. I believe in 1 month, the market went down 25-30%. And it seemed so devastating because you probably got your April statements and things went down, but it's just a little blip when you look at the history. And I kind of look at this and I say, think of someone playing with the yo-yo, climbing a mountain. You can look at the yo-yos, all the ups and downs, or you can just know that you're going to get to the $98 at the end. So is now a good time to invest? Yes. If you have a lot of cash, invest slowly. If we have a down market, you're all very young. You're going to be buying at cheaper prices, and it's going to do well for you in the long term. So it's always a good time to invest. But remember, if you're going to invest in the stock market, Don't invest that money that you need for living day-to-day expenses or money that you're saving for a goal. Really have in your mind that if you're going to invest, this money should really be at least 5 years out. And that's why the first place to invest, a great place, is the 401k. So now I'm going to turn that over to Liz. Speaking of 401k, we get a lot of questions about this.
Yes, we do. So we're back to that 50-30-20 rule. And what I'm going to propose and suggest is that you do everything you can out of this 20% bucket. And if you work at a place where they offer a 401k or a 403b, that you start contributing. So in other words, I propose that instead of going to Starbucks every morning, you make coffee at home. So instead of going out to dinner 4 nights a week, you cook dinner at home with your roommates. So that will take a little bit out of the 30 bucket and give you some more, wiggle room in the 20. Because I promise you that on the slide before that Sherry showed you, the compounding of investing $1 in the market is tremendous. And we cannot emphasize that enough. So for those of you who have the option,
Liz, you want to talk about what match is?
Yeah, I'm gonna get to that in 1 second. So how much can you put in? So the maximum amount that you can put in 2022 is $20,500. Okay, we're not suggesting you do that. Even if you can put in $25 a paycheck, every little bit counts. But at a minimum, if your liquidity situation and your cash flow allows for it, and your firm offers a match, let's say they offer you up to a 5% match, then if you can pull it off, put in 5% of your income. Because if you don't, it's leaving money on the table. The match is free money. When you start a job, the thing that you focus on most is what your salary is, which it should be. But all of these, there's benefits also provided. And one of the biggest benefits that a firm provides is a 401k. And to take it one step further is this match. I mean, you just add that onto your salary. So if you can afford to do it, just cannot emphasize it enough. And today more recently, there are 2 different 401k options. Not all firms have them, but I'm going to go through both. So a traditional 401k, which is what, if you have a 401k, that's what they offer. It is pre-tax dollars going into your retirement plan. It's a contribution. It is deducted from your income. And what happens is the investments grow for you on a tax deferred basis. So in retirement, you will have to take out the money, but you're not required to take the money out of here until you're age 70 and a half. I'm not even going to get into that discussion because that's way off for this group. But the point is, you put the money away, it grows, you kind of forget, you don't forget about it, you want to watch it, but it comes right off your paycheck. So it's not like you're writing a check. It's just, if you get into the habit now, as you start making more and more money, you can increase the amount that you're contributing and hopefully get up to that Roth 401k, which you may not all have access to, is an after-tax contribution. What's great about that, as opposed to tax deferred, is you put the money into your retirement account and it grows, and you take it out tax-free. So talk about free money. I mean, it's just a huge benefit. So for those of you who have both options and are just starting out, so somewhere in the 20% to 26% tax brackets, it would be our suggestion and recommendation to contribute to the Roth 401k. If you are so inclined, you could also split your contributions between your traditional and your Roth. That really is generally our recommendation because we just don't know how things will play out. But please, please, please take advantage of that Roth 401k if it is an offering to you.
Right. Thanks, Liz.
Yes.
So then the question is, well, yes, I'm going to put money in my 401k. How should I invest it? And if you know me, you know I love stories. So I'm going to tell another story about my daughter, Isabel, who just started her job a couple of years ago and rarely asks our advice for anything. But she called my husband and I up and said, I got this 401k plan should I invest in it? We said, of course, yes, for all the reasons that Liz mentioned. And then she said, I need to pick an investment selection. And when you look at your 401k, many companies have something called a target date fund. So and I'll explain that in a moment. So we told her to put the money in the target date fund 2065. And she said, great. Does that mean I'm going to earn 65%? And we said, no, that is your target date when you're going to retire. And that's where we say tiers of target date funds. We heard a big no, retiring in 2065. So what a target date fund is, it's a commingled fund that has both stocks and bonds, and it has the percentage of stocks and bonds based on your retirement date. So if you have a target date fund on the box here for 2025, it'll have 57% stocks. So that'll be a little more stable. Every year, it'll go lower and lower stocks as you get older. But when you're young, like a lot of you on this call here, webinar here, 2060, 2065, it's very stock dominated. It's 87% stocks, which gives you more risk, but more return. And you can handle it because you're putting money in every paycheck. So if the market goes down, you're getting at lower prices, and you have that very long time horizon like we showed you. Not every plan will offer target date funds. So if they don't, try to pick a balanced approach or a diversified fund. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. So that's really the 401k. And, we're here to help if you do have any questions on that. Then you have an emergency fund. And we all saw how important that was during COVID. Hopefully many of you were able to keep your jobs, and again, this doesn't happen overnight, but we really love when clients can start to put money away for emergencies. And again, it might be $50 a month, but the 3 to 6 months of living expenses is the goal. It may not be achievable all at once. That money, you don't invest in the stock market. You keep it safe, you keep it in a money market. Same for if you have a specific goal, you want to take a big vacation, you want to buy a condo, you have a down payment. That money also should be short-term. Again, as I mentioned before, unless you plan on not touching that money for at least 5 years, put it in something safe like money markets, cash, or CDs. Then the last bucket, and as Liz said, the priority, start with your 401k, build an emergency fund. You guys are young. The future seems way, way off. But if you do have a little excess in your account at the end of the year, some excess liquidity, start to build some long-term wealth, long-term planning, and then that's money that you'll put in diversified funds. We love index funds. Dave Rappaport, our partner, did a wonderful webinar, Investing 101. It would take us 2.5 hours if we did this plus that webinar. So we will include it in a link when we send you a note in the next few days. But it's really great if you want to watch the Investing 101 seminar. But this long-term money, bottom line, you want it diversified, low cost, and really, really limit a lot of that speculative, which we call crypto, a lot of the FANG stocks, Facebook, Apple, Netflix, Google, Amazon. Those are all great stocks to have a piece of, but you don't want to put 100% of your money in one portfolio, in one of those stocks. We saw that Netflix is down about 70% this year. So that's an example of putting all your eggs in one basket. So
yeah, and I would just interject quickly there. For many of you on this call, we know that the whole crypto thing is a thing for you. And it's okay to dabble in it. But again, you have to remember that you have to be willing to lose every penny that you put into that investment. So just keep that in the back of your mind. And if you are, go for it, not up for a big slice of your bucket, but if you want some play money, we're all about supporting play money, but you has to be within your means.
And a lot of people always say, what is the best investment? What do you think is the best stock? What are the best mutual funds? And my answer to that is the best investment you can make is to invest in yourself. So go to your doctor's appointments, take care of yourself, invest in education, invest in your career, in your friendships, your family. That's really the best investment at the end of the day. So now I'm going to turn it over to Liz for just in case.
Yeah. So again, at the beginning, I said this whole just in case thing really doesn't, at first glance, doesn't sort of fall under the financial umbrella, but really it is the financial umbrella. So how do I keep my financial information secure, which is such an important thing? We cannot turn a blind eye to this. So use strong passwords and PINs and keep them secure. I know I'm guilty of it. My family knows I'm guilty of it. I use the same password for everything. It's terrible. I have tried to change it and I've changed it on some things. There are apps and vaults that you can store all your passwords, but it's a little cumbersome. So what I've been doing, which I think is sort of a workaround, is I use my notes on my phone and I lock the note. So the only way anyone could get to it is using my fingerprint. So I think that that's secure. So make sure you change up your passwords. Maintain your computer security, antivirus, anti-spam, spyware detection. Anytime you get an alert, if it's on your work computer, make sure you reach out to your IT person. Don't ignore these, because I'm sure, as many of you have experienced, it is not pleasant if you get any of these on your computer. Avoid public computers for online access to financial accounts. Kind of obvious, but if we're in a pinch, sometimes we do that. Don't. Make sure when you leave your office at night or your personal computer at home, log out completely. Don't just let it go to sleep. Again, you just don't want your information floating out there. Secure websites. Just make sure you check for that. This actually, today in our family chat, our son sent us an email scam that he received. Do not respond to any emails requesting personal info. Do not click on anything that you don't recognize. It's just such a disaster, a nightmare to get out of once you get in that web. Read your statements. Even though most of you don't get paper statements, you can still read online. So, take a break from your TikTok and your Instagram and read your monthly statements. We are all so accustomed, sort of just to immediate gratification and, going from one thing to the other. But this is something you need to spend time on. It's all about the education. So it all goes hand in hand. So make sure you know what you have, and make sure you have, if you're not getting paper statements, make sure you actually have online access to your accounts so you can check them when you want. Safeguard your social security number. Just do not have that anywhere accessible for anybody. And again, which we covered earlier, review your credit report. And, really can't stress that enough, because we do find that things pop up on this credit report that don't belong to you. And you just need to take care of that sooner rather than later.
Yeah, the fraudsters have gotten really, really good. So the number 10 is, what if I need help with medical decisions? And I am going to tell one last story. This is not a picture of my daughter, Isabel. I guess Isabel got mentioned a lot today, but it's go big or go home, because Isabel is a skier like this woman here, and she fell, tore her ACL, and ended up going to the hospital and called us on her way home. I mean, called us on the way to the hospital, but didn't call me when she was at the hospital, and said that she needed surgery. So we said, what kind of surgery? She says, I'm not quite sure. I know it's ACL. I said, how detailed is the surgery? She said, here, call my doctor. So we called her doctor, and we needed to send a healthcare power of attorney. So what is a healthcare power of attorney? It's a document where you designate someone you trust that can make healthcare decisions for you, and also share your medical information. Once you're over the age of 18, doctors will not give information to anyone in your family, because you're an adult, unless you have this healthcare power of attorney. You also can designate end of life decisions with this healthcare power, and it's easy to find online. Again, we'll send it to you, but I believe it's in the chat, the healthcare power of attorney. You can just, Google it, or we'll send you the link to get the healthcare power. I hope that you will complete this, fill it out. And one of the most important things is, whoever you designate as that person who can step in to make those medical decisions, called an agent, make sure that they have a copy of it, have them put that on their phone, because unfortunately things happen and you never know when they're going to need it.
And I'm just going to interject one thing there. yes, it is about making healthcare decisions. And Sherry mentioned this, but I just want to emphasize it. In most cases, it's more about parents or other guardians or people receiving the information. God forbid something happens to you. Like literally a hospital will not release information to you without this. So not only should you keep an electronic copy on your phone, your parents or whoever you assign as this person should also have an electronic copy on their phone to send to a hospital, God forbid that they need information.
Great. So I think that we have covered the top 10 questions. I think we did it at about the time limit we said. We thank you all for attending. You will now be in our list for future webinars, but I think we have some questions. So Liz, you ready for some questions?
Sure.
I think I'll give you the first one. What is your advice if someone gets a spontaneous bonus at work? Should they use the same percentages, invest it all, treat themselves? What do you think they should do?
Yes, use the same percentages, but maybe peel a little bit off, a little bit extra off for the 30% bucket. Obviously we all work hard. If you are being recognized for that work, you should take advantage of it and spend a little bit more on yourself than you maybe already would have. But I would definitely not. I mean, it's an inclination to just take the full bonus and just, go splurge on something. And, depending on how much that bonus is, maybe, but again, you need to start these smart habits early. And so, think about it this way. You can take a big piece of it and accelerate your 401k savings for the year. Which that's where we would recommend, peeling off the most. But again, rewinding back to, when I was younger, I'm not sure I would have thought that way, but I also didn't have anybody, and don't get me wrong, I had great parents, but, back then you didn't have these type of financial conversations. And so that's one of the reasons why Sherry and I are really find it, such a meaningful, way to sort of share our knowledge, because we never really had it. Sherry did more so because her father was in banking, but it's really just, it's not rocket science. It's pretty simple, but it makes such a huge difference. So it's really our goal just to, make responsible young adults, sort of, plan out their future more so than, the prior generation did.
Thanks, Liz. Yeah, and I do agree, take a little bit, have a little fun. You deserved it if you got that bonus. So we have another question. At what point should we start investing? Is there an income level or amount in the 20% section that we should have before we start to invest?
That's a great question. So I don't think there's a dollar amount for that, because it's going to be different for every person, right? And depends where you live. So if you live in Chicago, or if you live in Milwaukee, or if you live in LA, or if you live in New York, I mean, those are, New York, Chicago, and LA are more expensive cities. So of course you're going to be spending more on the turning on the lights, right? So I think to come up with a dollar amount is difficult, but I think what I would recommend is you need to start work. Again, we encourage you, if you have a 401k, to at least turn on, the privilege, even if it's $25. I think many of you, in your checking accounts, when young people open up checking accounts, I think the banks recommend to you to have an automatic savings button go on, like $25 a month to go into savings. Kind of the same thing with the 401k, just to get started. And then maybe after 6 months, or, even a year, once you know what your actual budget is, at the beginning of this presentation, Sherry said you have to put a budget together. Well, you can't put a budget together on day one, right? You have to, when we do financial goal planning for our clients, what we say to them is, we need a few months for you to figure out what your monthly, spending is. Once you're able to establish that, then I think you can come up with a dollar amount. You can't just shoot a dart at it. And again, we want to make sure that you have enough for your living expenses to have a little fun before you start saving.
Yeah, good point, Liz. And you can start investing with really any dollar amount. The whole point is to get started. And if you don't have a 401k or 403b, you can always open an IRA, or you can open a Roth IRA. And we've seen people open them with $100, $500, $1,000. So if you don't have those other vehicles, there's always a way to start investing. And there's Vanguard and Schwab Intelligent Portfolios, and obviously us are ways you can do it. Then we have a question here about I bonds, and that's been in the news a lot lately. Those you can buy I bonds, but you have to go directly to the Treasury Department, and I believe it's $10,000 per person. And Liz, do you know the rate right now? It was like over 6%. It kind of goes with inflation.
Yeah, that's around 6%, and they've already announced that they're going to be issuing I bonds at even a higher rate. So it's definitely right now, given the marketplace, it's an attractive place to put some money. You just have to keep in mind that, you know, you're locking up the money. You know, and for you guys, $10,000 is a lot of money, right? So, you know, to get that return on $10,000, it may be worth considering. It's just, you know, it's a different type of investment. It's a more stable investment. It's a little more liquid though than investing.
Yeah, you have to keep it in there for a while. So
exactly.
But it's a great question. The I bonds is really that's really the only secure investment right now. We could say you'll get 6% or more. So we have just a few more moments with questions. Our emails are here if you want to send us an email for questions. We hope that we answered the top 10 and some additional questions, and we hope you enjoyed it. So any other questions? I'll check the Q&A real quick. I think I have that. I think we've answered everything. And I think that was it.
Thank you, everybody.
All for coming.
Thanks for taking the time out of your busy days.
Yeah,
I know
your busy day. We are going to record this. We are recording it, and we are going to have it out on our website. We'll send it to the newsletter. So if you do have friends that couldn't make it tonight, we know it's a busy time, graduations, things like that. Feel free to share it to them. If we can move the needle with financial education just a little bit, we feel like we did our job. So thanks, everyone. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Take care. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.